A very good morning to all my dear students. Today I will be continuing the chapter 3 of the Roman Empire, and today I will explain to you about the late Roman Empire. The two famous late Roman emperors were the Diocletian and Constantine, who ruled over Rome from AD 284 to 337. But before that, let me explain to you about the 3rd century crisis. So, before these two emperors became the, emperor of Rome, 3rd century crisis is known as military anarchy or an imperial crisis from the period AD 235 to 284. This was the period called, there was so many anarchy in this an imperial crisis during this period. It was the period in which the Roman emperor nearly collapsed. With many pressures of the barbarian invasions, civil wars, peasants' rebellions, and political instability, different people were competing for power. Thus, from period AD 235 to 284, there were 2 dozens of emperors who succeeded one after another, and only one of them had a natural death, and the rest of them were assassinated. And this period was, and because of this period is called the, the period of anarchy. And once, Emperor Diocletian and Constantine came to power, they tried to at least, halt the declining of the Roman Empire for at least for a period of 50 years. So Emperor Diocletian ruled over Rome from AD 234 to 305, and later on, he was succeeded by Constantine from AD 306 to 337. During the period of these two emperors, these two powerful emperors, the Roman government became full-fledged despotism. They become a full-fledged despotism. The emperor began to, the people began to worship their emperors as gods, and the kings now began to wear, fancy golden dresses, robes, and all the subjects were to prostrate themselves before the king as a kind of worship and respect to their kings. The emperors, began to maintain a great army of spies and secret agents in order to check the secret activities of the people. Economic system was also under the direct control of the central government, and the government regulated all the merchants and trading and traders' activities. Prices were regulated by law, and people were told what profession or vocation or what kind of job they were to follow. The measures taken by Diocletian and Constantine halted to some extent the civil war and the economic deterioration which the Roman Empire was going through during that period. And Constantine realized that his hold on the western province of Rome, that is in Italy, modern Italy, was weakening, and the strength of the state rested in the eastern province, that is, the modern country Istanbul. The state, therefore, he transferred his government from Italy, Rome, to a new capital on the site of the old Greek colony called Byzantine, modern Istanbul, and established Constantinople as its capital. It was later came to be known as the Eastern Roman Empire or a Byzantine Empire. Eastern Roman Empire survived for so many centuries even after the downfall of the Western Roman Empire. Now, the next point that I will explain is causes of the fall of the Western Roman Empire. I will explain according to point-wise. Point number 1 is the most important cause of the fall of the Roman Empire was the German barbarians. One thing that I want you to remember is I'm explaining to you about the fall of the Western Roman Empire, Western Roman Empire. So, Roman Empire was invaded by different tribes like Ostrogoths, Visigoths, and Vandals, which made the empire to decline slowly. since there was no proper communication and the empire was very vast, and because the neighboring and since this neighboring, the neighboring, barbarian tribes, they started invading the interiors of the Roman Empire, and slowly and steadily it led to the declining of the Western Roman Empire. The second one is the empire suffers from the problems of low productivity. The land in the western part of the Roman Empire, that is Italy, was not very fertile. It was and at the same time, there was, the failure of advancement in the field of technology. And with the fast-growing population, it could not match, since they could not make any progress in the field of technology, it could not match the growing population and expansion of the empire. The third one is in the advance in the technology. In the technological sphere was in the institution of slavery, which was an integral part of the civilization. But the rulers did not try to improve the condition of the slaves, and they were deprived of any incentives to improve their operation of his or her crafts, and they did not make much profit to improve the technology. And it was until the 4th century, when the supply of slaves became smaller, the slaves could not purchase the fruit of their own labor, and it affected the external economic power. And moreover, the people or the slaves which were working under the Roman Empire were overburdened with taxes. Another point is there was vast, imperial expansion, but limitation was set by underdeveloped communication system, because of which the imperial frontiers did not make any advancement or even began to shrink or were overtaken by the neighboring rulers. Another point is the heavy expenditure on bureaucracy and army led to the inflation. As a result, the coins became useless or worthless, and the traders reverted to the barter system, and the industry shifted from the cities to the villages, and the Roman villages became more and more self-sufficient economy. It led to the economic disintegration of the empire. And another point is, with the declining in the state revenue, the imperial structure could no longer hold the no longer support and slowly began to break down. And another point is, the Roman Empire was divided between the Eastern and the Western Roman Empire. The West was less advanced and weaker, and the Eastern was very much fertile, with a fertile land in the Middle East. And the imperial center was shifted from the Western Roman Empire to the Eastern Roman Empire, and because of all this reason, the Western Roman Empire declined. Now I will explain to you in brief about some of the legacy of the Western Roman Empire. Even if the Western Roman Empire declined, the Eastern Roman Empire survived for so many years. But here are some of the legacies of the Western Roman Empire. The first one is the monumental or the material remains, like the amphitheater, arenas, temple, aqueducts, roads, and bridges were first built and constructed during the by the Western Roman emperors. Another one is the Roman law, which is very much alive in the legal system of many countries in Europe and America. And another legacy of the Western Roman Empire is the Catholic Church, which is followed by so many people. And another one is the title Augustus or Tsar, which was later on adopted by the different countries, by the rulers of the different countries. So these are some of the legacies of the Western Roman Empire, even after the declining, or even after after the decline of the Western Roman Empire. So this is all I will explain for today. I will continue in the next class.